Good morning to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Tuesday now, the 29th of August, 2023, and this will be the video discussion update on Hurricane Idalia for today. This is it. This is the last day to do preparations. I'm going to dig into what to expect mainly, and then I'm going to talk about what we have done and what we're going to continue to do to set up equipment ahead of this hurricane. Idalia, of course, is a hurricane now. And where that equipment is located, how you can access it and help our project along. But the most important thing here is for you to understand, to the best that we can do, what to expect from this system for Florida, for Georgia, and the Carolinas. This is not just going to be a Florida problem. So let's get with it real quick. By the way, welcome to all the new subscribers to the YouTube channel and the folks, our new friends on Patreon. We really appreciate your support. And it's good to have you with me. Hopefully I can teach you something and bring you into our project in a way that is just so remarkable. So thanks for joining in. I do appreciate it. First of all, National Hurricane Center homepage. Hey, check this out. Looks like 92L is going to try to develop, so we might get another named storm. It'll be out in the open Atlantic, so no big deal at all. Here's Franklin. Franklin is still an issue. It is creating swells that'll be emanating out all across the basin here. So just depending on your local coastline, the geography, the orientation of your coastline to those swells will determine those impacts. But just let me come back on so I can talk to you. You guys are very important to me. Without an audience, I still would be passionate about this. But if you're 6 feet under, it's not helpful. It really isn't. And your family and your friends love you as well, I'm sure. So please, please, please take those swells, the rip currents that they can cause, seriously. And surfers that are going to be loving those swells, be careful too. You're not immune from back and neck injuries and maybe even the potential for drowning. Keep an eye on each other out there, will you? Please. The swells are an impact, as are the rip currents later on from those swells. Idalia, of course, the big story here, strengthening. It is now a hurricane. So let's take a look at it on satellite. You see Franklin out here. And then this is the other system, 92L, that's trying to make a name for itself quite literally. And then, of course, here is Idalia. Let's look at a true color animation here. These graphics, of course, courtesy Tropical Tidbits. A few things that I'm noticing that are concerning. Major feeder band going all the way down into the Caribbean. You've got what we call the upshear growth of deep thunderstorm activity. It's trying to develop a core right in here. And then all these thunderstorms out ahead and this fanning out of the clouds, that's all very indicative that this is ready to strengthen and strengthen rather quickly. The big key for rapid intensification is the development of the inner core. And between aircraft data that we will get and their tail Doppler radar, as well as microwave satellite imagery, we'll be able to see how that core is or is not evolving. The faster the eye wall closes off, the more that engine can really crank up over those very warm, record-setting waters of the Gulf of Mexico. And then make no mistake, this area up here, especially the Big Bend area, the Nature Coast, will see a life-changing storm surge. There's no getting around it now. This is not going to weaken. It's not going to veer off way over somewhere else, Pensacola or something like that. Tampa Bay, your area, yes, you're still going to see a surge all the way down to the west coast of Florida in its entirety. Onshore flow, everything's pushing towards Florida, and we have the full moon, and if this all starts to occur around high tide periods, it'll just be that much worse. This is the time to sound the alarms for people along the west coast that yes, there will be major impacts, and if people do not evacuate, there will be loss of life. And it's just as grim as that sounds, we have to understand that. So looking at a few of the graphics here off the Hurricane Center's website, really tremendous effort put into this over the years to develop this sort of dashboard, as I call it. Different thumbnails here of the various products that they have out there. Of course, the storm surge is the biggest killer potentially. Freshwater flooding is too, and we need to address that, and I will. But storm surge, you're talking feet here, and sometimes double-digit feet. That is a big problem. So clearly, you can see down here, the red area is just very, very bad. And then the orange up into Tampa Bay, possibly 4 to 7 feet. And then even over on the east coast, southeast coast of the U.S., onshore flow as Idalia comes in up here somewhere and then tracks along, something like that. You could have the onshore flow, the added effects of the astronomical tides. Storm surge is a big, big problem, and it needs to be treated with the utmost respect. Evacuate. If you're stubborn, you say, I don't think I want to do that. Come on, we need you. We need you around. People in your community need you. You're important. Do it. Just get away from the water, whatever it takes. Try to get outside of those major storm surge areas. The rainfall, also going to be a big problem, 4 to 6 inches in the yellow. The orange is your 6 inches plus, and that does extend even into the Carolinas and Georgia here, inland away from the actual landfall area. And then all the way over towards Orlando, maybe 2 to 4 inches, some of these bands coming in. And there's also the threat of severe weather. Any of these bands that work their way on the Florida Peninsula, they could have rotation in individual cells, and you could get a quick spin up of a tornado. There is a lot with these systems. It's way more than just a dot on a map and what you see on the graphics of the various social media and elsewhere. It really, really is a much bigger deal than that. Most Floridians should know that by now, but you know, you have to remind people there's a lot going on in the world every single day to distract you from focusing on something that is very, very urgent. All right, so this satellite imagery, though, again, I'm very concerned when I see this upward motion up here. I just think it's a matter of time now that this is going to really start to deepen, the pressure drop, and that core gets much better organized. Now, this is interesting. This is the track map over at our HurricaneTrack Insider site. We are HurricaneTrack.com, and then our crowdfunding partners, our friends, have helped to develop this map. All these are the different cameras, permanent and set up for the storm. By the way, let me just show you up here. Let's take a peek real quick at Rodanthe. We have 4 cameras up here. There's some of those swells coming in. This is the Rodanthe Pier. You know, you don't get they're not giant 10, 12-foot waves, which is a good thing. And there it is looking at the surf zone itself. Not too bad, but over the next few days, especially, and this is what I'm talking about, as Franklin gets on east of the Outer Banks, then those swells can come more on towards the coastline. But this is our interactive map, and it's interactive for many reasons. As you can see there, we have our camera systems on there, but also you can clearly see that the 8 a.m. Eastern Time intermediate advisory position is to the right of the forecast track. It's less than 10 miles, so it's not that big a deal, but it is to the right or the east of the forecast track. This was the 5 a.m. position down here. This is where it is right now. So yes, it has deviated to the right of the track just a little bit. It could come back to the left or west, absolutely, but this is something to keep an eye on, because upstream from it, or downstream, or whatever the, however you're supposed to say it, that can have implications. And again, you're over here in Tampa, and let's use our little distance calculator right here. There's the center. There's Tampa Bay, St. Pete, etc. right in here. And let's see here. So you just do this, and you say, all right, the core is going to be 100 miles away from Tampa Bay. Big deal for me. I'm not worried about this. Well, let me just go back to this satellite shot right here. All of that massive onshore flow on the right front side of this thing, the east side, that's just going to, as this comes by 100 miles away, it's going to send that water right up into Tampa Bay and the adjacent immediate Gulf Coast. You understand? So, yes, it is a big problem down here because the water just gets stuck in there. And this is going to be potentially several feet of saltwater inundation. Now, it would be obviously far, far worse if the center came up like this and they drove the core winds up in there. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. That's obviously a good thing. But let me just come back on and look right at you. This doesn't mean that it's going to be a non-event for Tampa. Far from it. There will be impacts. They could be substantial. Nobody knows exactly what to expect. So just think, all right, I got hurricane conditions coming. I need to be ready for it. Whatever that means for your location. You know, there's a lot of people down there in that area, and everybody's different. Businesses, residents, you know, everybody has different needs and situations. So you just need to be thinking impacts, and the impacts are going to be wind, possibly to hurricane force, certainly tropical storm force, storm surge at the coast, and potentially a substantial wind in this area, and heavy rain and the possibility of an isolated tornado. It's as simple as that. Worrying about the cone, worrying about the center line, or as people like to say, where is it going? Well, that matters, but it doesn't matter at the same time, all right? So a couple things to point out. This is the latest model cluster, the guidance, if you will. And if we zoom in over here, we can use the Firefox scroll zoom, as I call it. The official forecast is right here on the east side, or the right side, of the guidance envelope. And the reason it is, several reasons, I am sure, but we don't want to windshield wiper back and forth and take the eyes off of the potential disaster for the Tampa Bay area. So you might look at the GFS individually or the Euro individually, and those landfalls are up here somewhere, but they're not going to just yank the forecast track over there, the Hurricane Center. It doesn't work that way. And you can see the vast majority of the guidance on these tracks, St. Mark's is like right up here. It's all in that Big Bend area. There's Cedar Key, all right? And Tampa is not far from that. So every mile will matter. Crystal River, Yankeetown, all those areas. This is going to be a big deal here as it comes in. So don't worry about individual model runs. Look at the overall consensus. It's a pretty tightly clustered set of guidance that we have. And then that extends too up into the Carolinas and Georgia. And then afterwards, there's some craziness that could happen. We'll worry about that later. It should be a shadow of its former self up there. Don't get caught up in that. So Michael Lowry, a friend of mine, and boy, I tell you, you got to follow the people that just tell it like it is, and they're in the business to help people, and he is one of them. The experienced forecasters at National Weather Service Tallahassee, not mincing words, as he says, on Idalia in today's forecast discussion. This is very, very important. You need to complete your preparations today if you live in the Florida Big Bend. To put this system into the historical context, there are no major hurricanes in the historic data set going back to 1851 that have tracked into Appalachia Bay. None. There is no precedent for this. There is nothing that, oh, this is like so-and-so. Nope. Nothing. This is unprecedented. That term gets used wrongly by a lot of people over time. This is the time to use it. It is an unprecedented event going back to the historical record of 1851, and you bet those records are pretty good, especially in Florida with the colonization. I'm just saying, you're like, well, how did people know? I'm telling you, early on, especially the Cubans keeping track of what might be coming up towards Florida, the record is complete enough to know. And if you want to just make it even easier to wrap your brain around, certainly not since the 1900s, so 50 years later, when records were better, science was evolving a little bit more. I'm just trying to hammer it home. This is unprecedented, and it could be a major catastrophe for the Big Bend area. And then the next tweet here, the next graphic that they included, and yes, I know it's called something else, but for me it's always Twitter. Storm surge is expected to be life-threatening with potentially devastating impacts across portions of the coastal Florida Big Bend. The forecasts are greater than 9 feet along coastal Taylor and Dixie counties, up to 9 feet along coastal Wakulla, so St. Mark's, and Jefferson County, between 3 to 5 feet along coastal Franklin County. Widespread, deep inundation with storm surge flooding will be greatly accentuated by powerful, battering waves. Locations may be uninhabitable, hopefully both. I mean, you can't be there if it's uninhabitable. For an extended period of time, nearshore escape routes and secondary roads may be washed out or severely flooded. That's serious. That is not for clicks, for likes, for shares, for some kind of ego boosting by the person that wrote this. This is what the science is telling us, and we just need to look back at other hurricanes of the past elsewhere in the country and see what the storm surge did. And you know what? A year ago, the storm surge from Ida was terrifying. The footage from Max Olson, our footage from Fort Myers. Max had that Fort Myers beach. Amazing shot. Saw him yesterday, by the way, at Cedar Key. Rarely will you meet just a more humble, appreciative person. Just a great guy all around. And his footage from Fort Myers Beach, this could be worse than that in terms of the areas that are seeing it are so, it's unprecedented, right? All right, so we are HurricaneTrack. That's the brand. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and whatever that Threads. I don't do much at Threads yet. It's there in my back pocket if I need it. So what we have done is we've set up a bunch of equipment, as you can see here. That's what all these little camera things are. Some of these are permanent, set up at some of our friends of the project. That's what I like to call our supporters. They're not fans, they're friends. It's different. It really is. So let me explain. So HurricaneTrack Insider is accessed through Patreon. Patreon is how we do the crowdfunding. So we gather everybody through Patreon, and then you log in over at the HurricaneTrack.com homepage right here with your Patreon email address. After you do that, you land here on the HurricaneTrack Insider site, and then you have a menu up here that's fairly easy to understand overall, and you click on something like the live cams, and this is what you get, our dashboard. Now, these two right here are replaying off of our server from yesterday. These cameras are turned off right now, but these other ones are very much turned on, and you can take them full screen. This is the Cedar Key waterfront area. This has been used by our team many times, going all the way back even to 2003. Then we have Crystal River, just as an example. This is across from, I think that says Crackers, and so the water is over here. This is 98/19 or whatever it's called down there. This is Horseshoe Beach, right on a canal looking back down towards the water. Yes, this camera will be submerged, but if it comes out the other side intact, it should come back online. That's going to be incredible to see. This camera is looking right at our weather station over here. It's frozen at the moment, but it'll come back. So on our weather station at the bridge, at Canal Bridge 4. And then this one is absolutely incredible to me. We have a camera set up inside the tiki bar down here at Cedar Key. We worked with the owner there, Scott, and we were like, hey, let's set this up inside. It'll be looking out. We'll see what's happening. It could be remarkable to understand how the storm surge works from inside somewhere with all these exterior cameras. Now, we're going to be setting up more. We're not done. This is just what we did through 4 a.m. last night. We will be setting up more. Don't know exactly where. We might be shifting up towards Wakulla. I know we want one over in St. Petersburg, so we're still working today to set more of these up. So that's where they are located on the HurricaneTrack Insider site. Of course, you can see them right here on the map, the interactive map. They pop up as I showed you from the Rodanthe camera. That's pretty cool, and you can really zoom in and get an idea. This is the bridge cam right here, and hopefully it'll pop up. Yep, see, I told you it'd come back, and it actually has the weather data on it and so forth. 7 gusting to 11. Well, that's going to change later on, isn't it? So how do you do it? You go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack or get the Patreon app. They have an app. We don't need an app because we have all this. We used to have an app, but it was too complicated. This, I think, is better because we can control everything on the back end, and it's just bigger than any app. This is very good on web and on mobile. Actually, all this stuff does work pretty well on your mobile device. You can bookmark pages and add them to your home screen so it functions like a web app. And everything we do is crowd-funded, crowd-supported. Friends of the project, we meet these people in person. There really is nothing like it, and I'm so proud that it's my job. I'm proud of our team. I'm proud of what we've been doing. It's amazing. And here's, by the way, a full screen shot. This is a private link that I use, but this is what it looks like I can screenshot this and share it. Pretty remarkable. That's going to be something else there at Cedar Key. We've got another one of these weather stations that we're going to set up somewhere else. We just don't know yet. We have a little bit of time to figure all this out. And of course, I'm very happy that we're partnering with QuickDam, and they've got outdoor flood mitigation products that could be very useful. This is for freshwater flooding. Remember, we talked about these impacts over here of the rainfall. These products could be very helpful. And indoor. You can get stuff to help with indoor problems, not just hurricanes, kids, pets, spills, parties, whatever. Yeah, it's really amazing what these different products can do now using technology. The age of the simple sandbag and putting towels for everything. Yes, those are the cheapest options, but I was talking to a friend of our project yesterday. His name is Anthony, and he's got a home remodeling business among other things that he does. And he's talking about how much just a little bit of water can cause tremendous damage. So you spend a few $100s on mitigation, especially if you have property to protect, and you can save potentially $1 million worth of damage. Just think about it, what the power of water can do. And that's what brings us here. That's what this is. It is water in the form of latent heat trapped in that water of the Gulf of Mexico. Idalia is helping to release that and pull it out of the ocean quite literally. The Gulf, the ocean, same thing to me. And here we are having to deal with it. So we're going to do lunch with the team. The team this time, the field team, myself, I'm Mark, hi. And then we have Matt, he's from Denver, one of our friends of the project. And then we have Brent. Brent's been with us for several years, dating back to 2018. He flew up yesterday, and the three of us will go out and set up more equipment. We'll figure out where we're going to be for the landfall tomorrow. We will be live later this afternoon, starting around 3 p.m. on our YouTube channel. And CJ and our other friend Matt from Wichita, they're going to be doing some commentary, kind of like the Space Flight Now, or whatever they are, those NASA guys, you know who I'm talking about, the rocket dudes, and they commentary over it. You know, we're in an age now where we can really do some amazing stuff with the internet. So let me get this online so you can see it and digest it. There's a lot covered here for sure. All right, thank you for tuning in. As always, again, we will be live later today around 3 p.m. Eastern, and then at that point, we'll be live until this is done. And oh, by the way, we do have Starlink, thanks to our supporters. Thank you. Our friends of the project funded that, and we can set Starlink up when and if we lose cellular connectivity. We'll have Starlink, probably in the eye, if we're in the eye, or certainly in the aftermath. But we will be able to get data out and information out through Starlink, and we might even be able to help somebody else too. We'll talk more about that later. All right, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Be safe out there, and if you're in Florida, hey, we understand what you're going through. Hang in there. I know it's easy for me to say, but hang in there. All right, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. I'll talk to you again when we're live later today.